One shot. Good morning. Jay. Good morning. Good week. Trying to keep it warm in here. So. It's cold. Exactly. The only other thing, yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Home Monday. Trying to get hold of yesterday. Trying to get hold of me. Did you? Very bad. You do the things you don't should. Jesus. This is kind of sucks. You know,
Good morning. Everybody's happy. The sun is out. And it's not as cold today as it's going to be. So we'll call the annual meeting to order. If you don't mind, I'll open with a word of prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we are so blessed and grateful to be here as a church family to discuss and report the business of your church. It's our great honor as a leadership board to have the opportunity to serve your church and this congregation's church. Bless each of us that we may do the work of this church in a way that's pleasing to you. And it's in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thanks. Well, my name is Terry Diskey. I'm the outgoing leadership board chairman. And that's kind of nice. It's been a few years and I'm ready for a break, but it's also been a great blessing to have had the opportunity to serve. We've gone through some challenges, a pandemic, some things that we had to worry about. That we found if there aren't people in the pews, we don't get as much money. And yet the bills keep coming. So there were some interesting challenges along the way, and we've handled them as a board, and we're grateful for that. So let me introduce the current board and the new members to the board. First of all, Joel Schwartz. And Joel will be our new chairman of the board. So we'll discuss that in a minute. Eric Fenstermacher. Glenn Klaus. Shannon Aycock. Luann Erickson. The best keeper of minutes you'll ever find. Rachel Welch McGuire. And it's wonderful to see you. Chris Nelson. Roy Kiplinger. Roy is back for another stint on the board after a few years of rest. Diane Lute. Thank you. And then the outgoing members, as I mentioned, I'm one of them. Terry Wiedemann. And Barb Herring. And Barb is a great member of our missions committee. And you need only look at the inside of today's information about how much was in the budget for missions, 17,000, and how much was actually given to missions was over 100,000. So this is a great giving church and with great leadership in that area of things. I'm sorry. So we've talked about the 2024 trustee team was Terry Wiedemann, was Glenn Klaus and Joel Schwartz. And the things that, and I got out of order, but we'll do this. The trustee team doesn't always have a lot to do, but they've done a great job with things. The signage updates, I hope you all appreciate the new signage and the new looks. The general maintenance of the church. Developing an endowment fund for the long-term benefits of the church and developing a master plan for our building or buildings, potentially. And our new members, or the 2025 trustee team, will be Glenn Klaus, Rachel McGuire, and Chris Nelson. And I'm sorry for goofing up, Chris, right off the bat. Let's go back to the staff parish relations team, which was led by Barb Herring, Eric Fenstemacher, Luann Erickson, and now Diane Lute will join that group as Barb exits. They've provided care and support for our church staff, annual assessments of our pastors, which we appreciate very much, and initiated a liaison for each staff member. Sorry. Now I become tongue-tied. And then we come to the finance team. And it was myself, Shannon, and Rachel. In 2025, it will be Joel Schwartz, Shannon, and Roy Kiplinger. And we can look at some of the things that we've had this year in terms of financial report. You see that our budget was a little over $700,000. And we missed our actual, we were under budget because some of the spending that Chris is excellent at managing a budget and keeping us under budget. You'll notice that we actually did not make our budget by $17,383. And Chris will talk about some of the reasons why and those things. And as we look ahead to the commitments that we have, and we'll see a comparison between our pledges, our new pledges in 2024 as versus the number of new pledges in 2025. The new pledge amount in 2024, we had a lot of new members coming into the church as versus the number of pledges that we've had this year. The amounts pledged, and there's some reasons for that. And should I get into that, or would you like to? Good.
Thank you, Terry. Real quickly, just to kind of highlight a couple of things on here, some statistical things. There's a lot more I could have added to statistically onto this slide, but didn't want to confuse you. But here's what I want you to see in the midst of this. We had 118 pledges in 2024. Actually, that may have gone up to 120 by the end of the year. We have pledges that come in all year long. We ask for pledging in the fall. Sometimes we don't get those until mid-year. Kind of interesting. But the pledges that we had in 2024 was probably the highest number we've had in a number of years, and the highest number of total amount pledges of 495,000. In that, there's some, moving into 2025, there are some changes to that. Not just the numbers less of pledges, but we even had more new pledges, people who are new to the church or people who have not pledged in the past who have pledged in 2025. And so the total number right now that we've received is 103 for 435,000. Now what you see that might seem to be a challenge right up front because the numbers are significantly different from 495 to 435. The difference though is interesting. One of the things that we track every year, and we've gone back for a number of years even before I came, so we've got a track of about 8 years of non-pledged giving. We keep track of non-pledged giving. And we go somewhere between 165 and 250,000 a year in non-pledged giving. And so what we track through that is that sometimes people pledge in a year and then they give through that pledge. And other years people don't pledge, but they continue to give at a similar level, sometimes the same level, sometimes even more. And so when people are not pledging, we adjust the non-pledged giving for the year, and we can track it, again, through at least 8 years, probably do it more than that, but we've tracked it over the last 8 years. So we have a pretty good idea of where the non-pledged giving is going to be in any given year, and so we're anticipating a higher 2025 non-pledged giving because the people in between those who pledged and those who didn't, we know what they've given historically. And so we've made adjustments to the non-pledged giving for 2025, and so we're going to be able to hit our budget pretty closely. In fact, here's what the budget looks like in 2025. So a pledged giving of 436,000 roughly, non-pledged giving moving from 165 to 225 because of those non-pledged giving shifts that have happened this particular year. Let me pause there for a second to say, we never know why people stop pledging. I'm not concerned so much about that, although I'd prefer that everybody pledged, but I'm not so much concerned about that as I am keeping track of making sure that people are not just not pledging, but they're still giving and they're still attending. And so that's where that's how we've made those adjustments. We're watching who's still giving, who's still attending, that we can depend upon those funds in any given year. So our non-pledge has gone up for this year, but we are confident in that number. Mission has gone up a little bit because there's the cost of doing the work in mission is important. That takes care of some of their business work, but also it's the missionary support that we are included in that missionary line item in the budget. We have had a good year of rental income, so we're keeping it about the same level. Other income of $7,500 for 2025 is actually on the low end. We've had a lot more than that in 2024, but because that fluctuates wildly and we never know what that other income is going to be, so we keep that at a moderate rate so we can pay attention along the way. What that comes out to is a total income budget of about $694,700. And what we have planned for 2025 is, again, a $700,000 budget. We've made some adjustments in our budget. We have been able to give a cost of living increase to our staff in 2025, but we're able to hold the line at $700,000 for our spending through some savings in some other areas, and just actually some costs that we were anticipating in 2024 that never happened. We have had some increased insurance costs and increase in utilities, but we ended up over budgeting in 2024, which is all good news. So we were able to come in under budget significantly in 2024, and so we were able to reduce some areas in budget. The good news in that is that we've also planning for the budget for investing in some new areas of ministry. Something that was not a part of our ministry budget plan before was the gap. That's that group of kids between children's ministry and youth ministry that kind of fit into a kind of a no man's land of they're too old for one and too young for the other. And so GAP is the place that we've created for them. And that wasn't funded previously. And so we're funding that in this year. We're also funding something that I'll talk a little about in a few minutes, but it's called Growing Young, or the Growing Young Initiative. And this is a key piece of our initiative moving forward. Again, I'll talk more about that in a minute. We are also committed in 2025 to continue paying our tithe to the conference and the district at half. So we committed this last year. We hadn't paid in the last couple of years, but in 2024, we paid the full half tithe in 2024. So even though we came in under budget, we came in under budget in our giving as well, but yet we still paid our commitment to half tithe in 2024. We're committed to that half tithe in 2025 with this caveat. We've talked about this in our the leadership board, is that if we come in the black, then the very first place that we pay on is we add on to that 50% in order to get to 100% is our goal of tithe in the future years. And if we make it this year, then that's what we'll plan. So if we come in at 35,000 or 36,000 in the black in 2025, then the first place that extra money will go would be towards our tithe, so we can hit it at 100%. So this is what our budget looks like in 2025. Income, roughly $694,700. Expenses of $7,000 with a planned deficit of $5,300. And we'll be working during the year at overcoming even that deficit. So we're going to be doing some fundraising in 2025 so that we meet our full budget in the year. But we're keeping it at a level that we're close to anyway. We've hit this on more than 1 year, 700,000. So we have confidence that we're going to be able to have a really good and prosperous 2025 financially. So before I go on from there, this is a great place to ask questions, especially about budgets and leadership board. We have a microphone. It's right there in the front pew, Terry. So does anybody have questions of the board or of myself so far? We'll do some more later, so this is not your only chance to ask questions. Seeing none so far, that means we're either clear as mud or something. So thank you, Terry. We'll get to some questions and answers at the end. So thank you very much. It is a privilege to serve as your pastor. It really is. Pastor Allison couldn't be here today. She is spending some time with her family, and I know she would say the same thing to you. It is a privilege for us to serve as your clergy here at Covenant Church. We are blessed over and abundant, over and over again as your leaders. You remind us every day of your blessing to us. You pray for us. You've been generous with us. So we thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. And it is our hope to continue to serve you for the foreseeable future. There's no plans of making any adjustments. The staff-parish relations and the board earlier this fall made a commitment to made a statement to through the assessments to the district and to the bishop that they would like to retain both of us for ministry for the coming year. That was also our request to the bishop to remaining here in ministry for the next year. I'm looking at that as the foreseeable future. You know, knowing that I'm planning on still serving for a number of years yet, and so I hope to be here while we do it. So I wanted to bring you a report this morning, just a little bit about what's going on in the life of the church and what we as a board are doing, what we in ministry are doing. I'm not going to be able to give you all the details of everything because there's just too much, but I want to give you some highlights along the way. So I want to start with something that happened earlier in 2024, but I wanted to reiterate it this morning just to make things clear, and that was about our general conference in 2024. I know it's kind of water under the bridge, and maybe it doesn't matter anymore about this, but I know there's still conversations that happen about General Conference 2024. So I wanted to reiterate a couple of things. First of all, I've got details about this in the letter that I sent you last June. It's on the website. If you look under the tab about Covenant United Methodist Church, there's a place that says We Are United Methodist. If you click on that link, it will open a page to a statement that I've made and all of the letters that I've sent to the congregation over the last couple of years about the changes to from General Conference and the changes to the United Methodist Church. So there's more detail there. I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights today. Of all the things that you may have heard about General Conference, General Conference, briefly, is the gathering of United Methodists from across the globe who meet every 4 years, or supposed to when it's not a pandemic in the world. They meet every 4 years to make decisions about the United Methodist Church. It's the only group, it's the only group of people in the United Methodist Church that speak for the whole United Methodist Church. Even the bishops do not speak for the whole United Methodist Church. It's only the General Conference that speaks for the United Methodist Church. And so when it meets, then the decisions that's made there are important for the life of the church. In 2024, they had not met as a full General Conference since 2019. They were supposed to meet in 2020. They had a special session in 2019. The last full session of General Conference was in 2016. So 2020 didn't happen because of the pandemic. It was postponed to 21, postponed to 22, and then postponed to 24. And so it was 8 years since they'd had a chance to meet and deal with some of the key issues that we as United Methodist Church have been dealing with for 50-some years. But here's the key things that I want you to know about what was decided at General Conference. Number one, most importantly, the mission and the doctrine remained unchanged. I can't highlight this enough. There's been so much talk, so much propaganda from people outside the United Methodist Church or outside the leadership of the United Methodist Church that have been wanting the United Methodist Church members to feel like the rug was being pulled out from underneath the church. and the doctrine was shifting, and we were going away from Jesus, and we were throwing out the Bible, and all kinds of junk that I kept hearing and seeing in print. That's not the case. We have a doctrine that has stood the test of time, not only for the last 57 years of United Methodism, but over those 300 years of Methodism. There's a lot going on in the United Methodist Church that we hold on to. It's a long, beautiful tradition that we have. And so our mission and doctrine have remained unchanged, which has remained unchanged for many, many generations. The other key piece of this that really is a shift in understanding is regionalization. A simple way of describing regionalization is this. The United Methodist Church, for most of its history, has been a United States-centered church with missions outside the United States. And the mission conferences, missionary conferences, and other conferences that were not given exactly equal representation in the same way. And so what has happened is that the United Methodist, U.S.-centric polity, the things that we do, the business that we do throughout the church, the way we're structured, was still focused upon U.S.-centric ideas, ideals, and structure. In 2024, that's shifting. It's shifting toward a global church, meaning that we're going to be looking at the world, we've looked at the world differently. And so the United States, which the bulk of the members used to be in the United States, the bulk of the members are outside the United States now in the United Methodist Church. And so now as a global church, we're kind of flattening out the leadership structure across the globe and become a regional church. The United States will be one region, just like Africa and Europe and other places will become regions of the church. And so the structure is flattening a bit. Still a general conference, still delegates from around the world, but it's going to help in the development of future books of discipline, future polity for the whole church, and allowing some autonomy in every region to make adjustments to what's going on in their world and in their context for their work and structure. So it's actually a beautiful thing for the American church too, because we don't have to develop something in hopes that the rest of the world can adopt it. We can adopt what we need to structurally in the church within the United States so that it works best for the church in the United States. That's what regionalization is all about. It is a constitutional change, so it requires ratification across every local or every annual conference across the globe. That is a long process. It's going to take a year and a half or so for that to happen. We as Indiana haven't even voted on that yet. That's going to come in June. So that process is still ongoing and will be for a while yet. One of the key pieces that happened in our church the general conference this year was the removal of harmful language and the restoration of the book of discipline. The book of discipline in 1968 was started with this broad look, recognizing that we were going to be a broad, theologically diverse church. And over time in history, there have been factions within the United Methodist Church that have tried to make it one thing or another. Not just one group, by the way, more than one group have tried to take the language of the church and make it more liberal or make it more conservative or make it something in between. And all of that added language over the last 57 years has been unhelpful because it's not allowed for the context of the United Methodist Church as it began. And so in 2024, all of that harmful language was removed. They restored the book of discipline in its basic form back to its 1968 original with a lot of updates, obviously. But it restored the language in the book of discipline so that we could still be a contextual ministry depending upon where we are in the world, even in the United States. We're different in North Fort Wayne than we are in South Georgia. We're different here than we are in the west coast of California. And some of this language was putting a huge roadblock into ministries doing ministry with the people in their community. And so this change allows us as a church to be the church where we are. So that's actually a positive thing. So restored the book of discipline. There has been some updates to the social principles. Many of the social principles, which the discovery class is doing a study on. Did you start today? They started today on the social principles. So if you want to sit in on the discovery class over the next several weeks as they talk about the social principles, they would love to have you, but it's probably going to be standing room only. Just so you know, it's already a full class. They would love to have you, though. Social principles are available for download from umc.org if you want to read through those. But again, really great statements of faith of how we as United Methodists address issues of the world. So good stuff. The other thing that General Conference did is because of all the disaffiliations that have happened, people who've left United Methodist Church, there was a reduction of the budget by 45%, and trying to bring the whole church into a more streamlined church in the best way possible, and be able to run a balanced budget. What does that mean for Covenant United Methodist? Well, we've been United Methodist for all 43, almost 45 years of ministry here at Covenant. We were started with United Methodist ideas, United Methodist prayers, United Methodist people. We were started with United Methodist money. We continue with United Methodist pastors. We are United Methodist Church. We don't all believe the same. We don't all have the same values. We never have. We never will. The United Methodist Church recognizes the changes or the differences that we have as people. And so the beauty in all of this is that we can still remain who we are as a United Methodist Church, and we can continue our ministry. So little officially has changed in the United Methodist Church, and almost nothing has changed in the way in which we do ministry here at Covenant United Methodist. We can just keep moving forward in our ministry in positive ways and addressing the people that come into our context in positive ways. So as for 45 years or 57 years of the United Methodist Church, we get to just keep pushing forward in really positive ways. Just as a reminder, our mission and ministry is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world by proclaiming the good news of God's grace and by exemplifying Jesus' command to love God and neighbor, thus seeking the fulfillment of God's reign and realm in the world. These are from paragraphs 121 and 122 of the United Methodist Book of Discipline. Does that sound like us? Making disciples of Jesus Christ, working at transforming the world. I am proud to be able to serve a church that continues to make that statement and live to that reality every day. So that's kind of just that background information. I thought it was important. There's some changes coming to Indiana, though. When I was on the cabinet as a superintendent, we had about 1,100 churches. We'd gotten to 1,100 churches. And that was down from where it had been previously, but to about 1,100 churches. Because of disaffiliation, the churches that left United Methodist Church over the last 4 years, and the challenges that life brings, context changes to small churches, we've reduced the number of churches in Indiana from 1,100 to 650. Currently, there's 650 United Methodist churches across Indiana. Now, that number of 1,100 was going to change anyway, because especially during COVID, there's a lot of churches that just couldn't continue through COVID. They couldn't make it through. They were struggling before COVID began, and they just couldn't survive after that. So we closed a lot of churches. There's several churches here in Fort Wayne that have closed and continue to struggle. But we lost a lot of churches to closure. We lost a lot of churches to the Global Methodist Church. We lost a lot of churches to independent churches and others that have joined some other denominations. But we're moving forward in Indiana with 650 churches strong, looking to add some new congregations in the coming years. One of the changes that's happening, though, is because of the changes in the total number of churches, is that we're looking at changing districts again. Or changing the way in which Indiana is districted. So this next slide shows you two different maps, both of Indiana, if you're not familiar. But the one on the left is the way in which the church was separated into districts before, or is currently. The map on the right is the way in which the church will be separated by district starting in July 1. We are in the Northeast District. As you'll see, the red marking around that shows what the new one's going to look like. But we're in the Northeast District. Our superintendent, Russ Abel, is the superintendent both of the Northeast and the East Districts currently, so is already serving most of this area with one superintendent. and some associate superintendents as well. In the coming year, or starting in July 1, we will go from 7 superintendents down to 5. We have 7 superintendents serving across the state now, but it's going down to 5. And so there are some superintendents that are no longer going to serve, others are retiring, and some that are sticking on, but we'll have 5 superintendents. 4 of them have been named so far. Our superintendent remains. Russ Abel will continue in 25 and 26 at minimum. But you can see our new area. It's basically the same area that we have now with 2 districts added together with one simple change, and that is that we've added Grant County in, whatever that other county is there. Miami County. We're adding Wabash County. Wabash and Grant County are new parts of the north of this district, which is now called the Eastern Rivers District. That's who we're going to be starting July 1. It may mean some changes in some things district-wide because we are going to be such a large district. So there might be some changes to how we do ministry together. I'm not on that committee anymore, so I'll just have to speak into my frustration of it periodically with our superintendent. As you can see, this is what we're going to be dealing with in the months and years coming forward. Good news is we're still going to continue strong as a church. Just as an aside, I did put our logo there on the top of Allen County. See where we were in the midst of all that. Except for one church in the southern part of the district, the new district, we are still at the top, either 1 or 2 size-wise in all of the district. So we still carry a lot of weight in our influence across the district, across Fort Wayne, but across now this whole district. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. We're going to have a chance to speak into some of the ministry that happens in the district and in the local churches around that. So what is our mission? And I'll get back to that in just a second. Our mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. That's who we are. That's what we've been for the last couple of years. We reframed our mission, our vision compared to this mission. This mission statement is the United Methodist mission statement, and we have embraced this fully. This is who we are. But we recognized in our work as a board that we have some key foundations that are important to us. We call them foundations, might call them core values, but we have 6 core values, core foundations that we think are important to us, and we continue to live into these every week. That we believe that we're a missional church, so we believe going is important, going outside the walls of the church. Secondly, we believe in connection, connecting not only as a United Methodist Church, as a connection ministry, but we believe that connecting with people outside the church and together, relationship is important to us. Relationship with God and relationship with one another. We also believe in following Christ intimately. So we're a discipling church. We help people. We're working at helping people become disciples of Jesus Christ. That's our mission. And so we've embraced that fully of how become a discipling church. We continue to work on this 4th one, the welcoming side. We want to be a church that is radical in our hospitality. So when somebody walks through the door first time or the 100th time or 100-yearth time, they feel the same kind of warm hospitality and feel welcome in a place like this. That's a commitment of ours. We also believe in sharing, a generous church. You've proven that. Terry mentioned it a minute ago, $102,000 in mission giving in 2024. Most of that is on top of what was on the budget. So the budget was, you saw the budget amount of $17,000. You gave $83,000 more than that in 2024 for missional things. In 2024, another aside, you might see it in the thing that you got this morning. If you didn't pick that up in a bulletin, there's some mission annual report in there. In 2024, lots of worldwide challenges, tragedies, and United Methodist Committee on Relief, or UMCOR, was at all of them. Generally, you give somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 a year to United Methodist Committee on Relief. In 2024, you gave almost $17,000 to UMCOR. Every penny of that goes to needs across the globe. So again, you are generous in lots of ways. We try to remind you of that and how much we're grateful for that. And then lastly, worship, one of the foundations of being the gathered church and providing excellent worship opportunities in lots of different ways. We took those 4 points of focus. This is just a recap of where we've been with our mission, our vision statement. We recognize that evangelism, discipleship, community, and hospitality were all really of those 6. These were the things that kind of raised up as the most important 4 points of focus for us. And so that led to our statement of mission, which is to connect people with Jesus, build communities, and take our next steps of faith together. That's who we are. And we believe that, and we're working on that. We spend time every board meeting discussing how we can do these things more readily in our ministry. And so as that, I wanted to bring kind of a few things that kind of update us on the 3 to 5 year vision plan that we've had. We shared with you last year, but we want to kind of update that a little bit, kind of tell you what's going on. One of the things that we have seen that maybe you've not experienced it, but many of you have, and those of you who are going to be watching with us online, you know this. Our online campus is critical for our ministry. Let me say that again. Our online campus is critical for our ministry. Many of our newest people that have come to Life of the Church over the last number of years have done so for weeks or even months online before they ever step through the doors of the church. Our online presence and how well we do that is critical. And so, we're going to continue to improve our online experience, and we have done that. One of the things that we've discovered this last year, some ideas that we had in enhancing our online presence, is that we're doing things that nobody in Indiana, United Methodist churches, were doing. There's a lot of places that are streaming services, but one camera in the back, and they get to see the whole thing, and there's not really any connection with people individually. We've got an online presence before service, a live remote that we're doing before service. When communion starts, we do an online communion service just for those who are watching us online. So we do some things that other churches aren't doing or weren't doing. We're kind of at kind of doing some testing and leading in that way. We're hoping to do some more of that. We've got some new changes coming in 2025 already with our online presence, making our online experience for worship even better. Greg and I were just talking about that this week, about some changes that are coming. And I'm excited about that. It'll just make worship that much better for those online. And while we're doing that, we're still continuing to make improvements, which is it's assumed in the midst of all this. We're doing all this too. We're improving our in-person presence and worship experience also. So don't think that we're only focused online. That's just one focus of many. We want to continue to enhance what we do here on this campus. We're going to continue to leverage social media. We have a great presence now, hoping to change some of that in this coming year, just make it even better. And I'm working with a colleague who's in Ohio, who has been stated that they're probably the best virtual discipleship church in the Ohio Conference. And maybe in the jurisdiction, but he and I are becoming friends. We're talking about stuff, and so I'm learning from him as he's learning from me, and so we're hoping to kind of leverage that relationship and maybe do better in some of our virtual discipleship here at the church in the coming year as well. We still are developing some new faith communities. We're at work continually with Huntertown, not Huntertown Church, but the Huntertown community. We're continuing to find a presence there so that we can to maybe build a community of faith there at some point in time. We don't know what that looks like. We still don't have a framework for what that looks like. We had an idea, and it wasn't working, so we've kind of backed off, and we're ready to take a new direction, but we're still committed to doing some work in Huntertown. I had a conversation with our superintendent just a couple weeks ago. He was asking me what our commitment was to Huntertown, if we were going to be able to do it, what kind of help that we needed. And the district is continuing to be prepared to come alongside us, behind us, ahead of us if need to. But the district is ready to help us move forward in the Huntertown community. And again, there's new ideas about that. We don't know what that looks like yet. Life groups, we've started some new life groups this year. We're hoping in 2025 we expand that to some, not just some life groups, but actually more life groups that are have more intimacy than just a learning group. but a group that holds each other accountable. So it's accountable life groups, a more intimate and intentional grouping. So we're looking at developing some of those. If you're interested in some of those, see myself or Pastor Allison, and we can help get you plugged in or help you build one of those together. In 2024, we started some reading groups as we were reading through the whole Bible, read through the whole Bible 2 years ago. Last year, we did some meditation groups, and those reading groups, many of them have continued or perpetuated. So those reading groups that we started, we're continuing to read together, study together, and so we're hoping to continue those in 2025 as well. So that's what we're doing, developing some new communities. We have some other ideas too. I didn't put them on this list, but we're still looking at a couple other areas to help develop some communities of faith. But one of the things that we know is that we can't do everything. We can't do everything that we want to do. We can't do all the missions that we want to do, even though we have a generous church. We can't do everything. And so partnerships are important. We have committed to, as a church, to being connected to other local United Methodist churches. And over the last couple of years, we've been a part of this development of the tapestry. Pastor Allison has been instrumental in getting that done. I sit in on those meetings as well. But the tapestry, as you've seen last year, we did the first worship service together over Labor Day. We've got some new worship services that we've got planned. We did one for the longest night service we did at First Wayne Street. We have some new worship services that we have planned for Lent that are the tapestry, bringing all of our resources together and doing some good worship together, worship opportunities and ministries together. So this is a great partnership that we benefit from, but we also pour into. Our Lenten series is a series that is being developed by the leadership of the tapestry. And so all the 5 churches are going to be doing this ministry together, or this series together. We're going to have a devotional published that you'll all get an opportunity of getting that will be written by all the pastors from across and the staffs from all across the tapestry. So it's really good stuff that we're developing together and brainstorming ideas together. But this is the churches: Auburn Church, Good Shepherd, First Wayne Street, Trinity United Methodist downtown Fort Wayne, and Covenant. And we might bring some other churches in along the way, but right now, this is what we're continuing to move forward in. We also recognize that we're other ways that we can be in partnership with other local ministries and agencies. This has not changed much, but we're continuing to do this with associated churches, which I just added some pieces there so you remember what each of these things are. The Neighborhood Food Network, which we're part of, we collect food for every week. The Rising Stars, which was our partnership with Lincoln Elementary. These are key pieces of our ministry through associated churches. I think I told you this before, but I'll tell you again. I'm on the board of Associated Churches, on the board of directors, and starting this last year, I became the chairman of the board of Associated Churches. So I'm president of the board currently, and so this is a ministry that you've done as a church for many years, and so I'm grateful to be a part of that on the leadership side. We're continuing our ministry connections with Inasmuch Ministries, which does all kinds of housing and utility assistance that we pay into every month. Circles, which helps people get out of poverty and learning how to budget and plan their life differently. We're continuing to be partnered with Rescue Mission, providing meals. The Treasure House, which is just across the street, which we provide volunteers for and help for. So we're connected in all those ways. And then also, probably the newest partnership is with the Alive Community Outreach, which is the Peace Academy. And so we're part of that. We've got a group of people that have been going there the First Wednesday. I knew it was a Wednesday. Couldn't remember which one. First Wednesday of the month. We've got a group of people that are going for lunches and assisting and communicating with these young people at Northrop High School. Why this was important to us is that it's the same kids that we've been in ministry with and for at Lincoln Elementary who've grown out of that and are now at Northrop High School. So we get to make some connections in some really interesting ways. But that is Alive Community Outreach. You've heard Angelo Monte just a few weeks ago come and share with us about that. So those are kind of the key things that we're doing, but here's some things that we're working on right now in our board to move us forward with ministry. We're going to be revisiting the vision. I know it seems like we just did this, but the vision is over 2 years old now. And we're reminded that life changes, the world changes, context changes, our makeup changes. And so we're going to revisit the vision. We're not going to revision, but we're going to revisit the vision and be able to make any adjustments that we might need to in our vision. We've been studying for the last several months, almost the last 8 months of 2024, a book called Growing Young. This is a book, it's a reminder to us that in order for us to be the church in context, in our place, is that we need to begin to pass the baton to younger generations. This is not a church growth strategy, it is a church health strategy. And so what we're looking at is how can we do this better as a church and to learn how to grow young. Instead of the board being a bunch of retirees that just keep hanging on to leadership, we've not done that. But if a bunch of retirees that keep passing the baton to one another in perpetuity, it's about how do we reach into the community deeper and help raise up the church in every generation. Which means that we're going to have to focus on some more intergenerational ministries in the coming years. Not just in 25, but in years to come. And so our goal is to leverage this understanding and these principles in the book Growing Young and working on that and developing those ideas into practices here in the church to see more younger leadership, to see more leadership from across the spectrum of our age that actually fit with our whole context. So that's what this Growing Young is all about. The intergenerational focus, also growing discipleship, knowing that if discipleship is our mission, it's key to our vision, then we have to be doing it. And so we need to learn growing discipleship as we also grow disciples. That, in a nutshell, is what we've been doing and what we're planning on doing every day in all of our ministries from across the life of the church, from children and GAP and youth and discipleship and adult ministries and Sunday school classes and small groups and life groups and worship. We're going to continue to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, and we're going to connect people with Jesus along the way, building communities and taking our next steps of faith together. I don't know about you, but that's exciting. It gets me out of bed every morning to think about what God is going to do in our work together. And it's a privilege, as I said at the beginning, it's a privilege to lead you in that endeavor for another year. So this is our report from the board. Questions that you might have, feel free to raise your hand now. We'll bring you a microphone so everybody can hear it. We are recording so that this can be available for those who weren't here today. So we need your question on a microphone so everybody can hear you, even online. Question right over here, Terry.
In one of the recent letters from you, you mentioned discipleship plate.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was.
Come next Sunday. Because it's going to be unveiled next Sunday in Pastor Allison's sermon. I'll just give you a brief highlight. You know what the food pyramid is? It's obsolete. The food pyramid doesn't work. There used to be a discipleship pyramid at the same time, using the food pyramid as an example. It now is a food plate. If you've seen I'm not sure who does it, but somebody created the food plate of looking at all that. We've done the same thing for discipleship. And so we're creating a discipleship plate to help you see what your plate should look like in growing as a disciple. And so that will be revealed next Sunday. Back there.
Hi, I was just curious. I know we lost some members and we've gained some members, and I just don't know what our membership number is currently.
That's a great question. I will tell you this. We lost 7 families in 2024. We've gained 10 families since then. So our actual membership is in flux because we're still getting some membership transfers in. We've collected, I think we had 20 new members in 2024, and we've got another class of new members coming in 2025 already. So our membership is actually up net about 15. So we're running about 615 in membership numbers. So on a good trend. Great question. Any other questions this morning?
I just want to throw out a shout out to the church for putting out the directory that we came out with this year. So thank you to everybody that was a part of that. I mean, it's finally nice again with all the new families and changes to have, you know, pictures where possible and to have updated cell numbers and email addresses, et cetera, for folks. So thanks to the church for doing that. It was really important.
I want to say thank you to the staff that took on the bulk of that work. Pastor Allison, Anita did a lot of that work, and I'm grateful. And some volunteers, obviously, it helped as well. Just a quick statement about that. The reason that we went with this format of a new directory instead of that old shiny photo directory that we used to do that are obsolete as soon as it's published, we did it this way because every time we print one, it's refreshed. So if a new family comes in tomorrow and we take their picture, when a new directory is printed, their picture's in it. So we can update the directory. We can print them as often as need be as new people arrive. And that was unavailable to do before, but now it is. That's why we're trying to keep your picture in our directory. So if you don't have your picture in the directory, you can upload it yourself or give us a picture of yourself or your family so we can keep that directory uploaded and up to date. So thank you, Glenn. Yes, sir.
I think I can speak loud enough. I'd just like to know what our maintenance costs are annually, and is the aging of the church starting to affect that or not?
Question was about the maintenance of the church and aging. I'll tell you, one of the things that we have done happened before I arrived here. We have had a maintenance manager, supervisor that's been a part of the church staff for a number of years. That has been a big help in offsetting a lot of costs for maintenance. They don't do everything, and Kevin Bear is our maintenance director now. But all of the work that he's done, David Rabideau that did before that, helped to offset an awful lot of cost. Our facilities budget in 2025 is about $106,000. That includes all the utilities and upkeep. The beauty in that is that it's been able to help us keep just about everything up. In 2022 or 2023, we lost several of our pumps. We're on an interesting boiler system here in this site, and we have multiple pumps, and when one of those goes out, it's about $11,000 or $12,000. In 1 year, we replaced 3 of the 4 of them. And so we did that in our normal everyday thing. We didn't have to raise money for it. We were able to do that through our budget. So we've been able to maintain our systems really well. The north wing, that's the south wing of the offices, had to be roofed this last year. But the damage that came through with hail and storm damage, it was able to be replaced through insurance monies with no out-of-pocket from us whatsoever. So right now, we've done a really great job, and in the foreseeable future, there might be some costs coming. We're looking at some kind of the master plan, but looking at master plan for maintenance as well. Right now, within our budget, we're able to handle it.
And the maintenance budget for the 2025 is $22,000.
The one line item, the whole thing is about 110.
Exactly. Bill?
Just a simple question. Is the directory online on our website?
It is not available online for a couple reasons. Making it online would then make it available widely to the internet. And so we decided not to publish it online so that your personal data was not available widely. If you want it, ask the office and we'll get you a copy. We can either print you a copy or we can make it available to you, PDF form. But we at least if it shouldn't be there, but that's the reason that we didn't put it there, so that it's not, so that your data isn't available on the internet.
in the lobby every Sunday.
Terry, there's a question down your front.
I know you mentioned one of our focuses being in our online presence. And unless I missed it, I think it would be a good idea if you let everybody know about like what that attendance and what our views look like, because it seems pretty impressive to me. And like you mentioned, like some families come in because of being online first, and that's how we came in. Anyway, I just thought that might be interesting for people to know.
Thanks, Shannon. So bit of background, the annual conference finally put together a plan for how to count people online. And you can count 2 people for every view of your worship service. We've chose not to do that. We're only counting 1 for every view. Even if a family of 4 is watching, and we might know that, but we're still only counting them as 1 view or 1 person attending worship, because we're averaging over all 4 of our online platforms, we're averaging through the week about 1,000 replays of our worship services a week. If we were to add all that together, we would add 2,000 members in attendance on a Sunday morning. That's not accurate. We know that. That's why we're not counting that. What we're counting are 1 view per person or per visit for the full or for the bulk of a worship service. So across all 4 campuses or all 4 online presence plus our attendance here, we're adding all that together. We're having about 150 to 250 that we can count accurately in our online presence every week. Some of that is just on Sundays or the 24 hours from Sunday morning, but if we start adding the rest of the week, the number just goes sky high. So we're averaging about 150 to 250 a week with our online presence. Back there, Terry. And I get notices all the time, comments all the time from people from all over the place that thank us for the ministry that we do. They're from out of state. We've had some people out of country that watch us regularly. So, yes.
Just wondering, how many of those online, I was curious, do they formally register? I know
You hear me
There's
say that every
probably no-
week. If you hear me say that every week, don't forget, register your attendance. Let me know that you're here. I say that when we're out in the lobby. I say that when we're in here. I try to remember. It's like pulling teeth to get people to register their attendance online. I know of dozens of people that are watching every week. They tell me about it. They'll quote the sermons. And yet I'm like, I didn't even know you were online. You never say anything. You never say hello in the chat that I asked them to do. So unfortunately, we're having to depend upon the individual numbers that we get. We get great metrics from our website or from our online campus and YouTube and Vimeo and what's the other one? And Facebook. We get really good metrics from all of those, but we can't get individuals to do that. So we do as best we can.
A couple other things. Regarding the directory, I think we do have a way to digitally access it, but I think you have to, right?
Yes.
Yeah, have to email
Thank you.
Pastor Allison. Or,
You can access our database digitally if you log into our database, and you can get a login to our database. It's available. Just call the church office or call Christina, and we will make sure that you get a login there. You can update your information. You can communicate with some others in there, but you can get an online database through our website, but it's a secure login to do that. And you can also, when you get into that, you can also then download and monitor your own giving information that's there, your attendance information that's there. So you can manage your data from that if you'd like to be a part of it.
and then one last thing I was going to piggyback on Glenn's shout out. I just wanted to give a shout out as one of the families that has a middle school student now. We are just been very grateful for Pastor Allison taking charge of our youth ministry and her organization, her planning, her communication of that. There's a mentorship program happening for our youth, and it's just been very reassuring, and we've been very grateful for it. I don't know much about what's happening on the high school end of things, but yeah, that's a shout out from that neck of the woods of the
Yeah,
church too.
our youth numbers keep rising. We've got confirmation retreat happening this fall or later this year. Gap numbers continue to go up. So we're doing some really great things in youth ministry right now, thanks to Allison especially. And children's ministry doing an amazing job, thanks to Anita.
Sorry, just piggybacking on the online, only once have I managed, and I have no idea how I did it, to get into the place where you can actually fill out the form. I go through Facebook, and only one time have I been able to get that. And so maybe if we had some directions of how to get to,
On the registration form or the connection card?
well, or just how to get to the different platforms for the church.
I see. Simple, covenantumc.net.
Yeah.
And just go to the website. That's just about everything is all right there.
Okay. Well, I go to Facebook and you only get Facebook. So-
Yeah.
Except for one time.
Okay, I have to say, I just take her totally for granted now because she's so amazing and awesome. But a shout out, yes, to Anita as well for our children's ministry. Yeah, I didn't even mention her because she's just, we just take her for granted now. So, yes, children's ministry is, been wonderful too.
Yeah, we just sent them both, Allison and Anita, to Florida 2 weeks ago now, and they came back. So I'm grateful for that. We sent them in the winter so that they could bask in the 40-degree temperatures that they had in Florida. It was awesome. Well, thank you so very much for your attention, for your care, for your passion for Covenant United Methodist. We're going to make sure that 2025, as best we can, is a year filled with blessing from God and to God. So you will help us participate in that. Let me pray for us as we close today. Gracious God, thank you so very much for our time gathered today, for hearing this report and questioning it and participating in what it is that you're trying to do. We as a board are just working, God, at following your lead in all that we do. So God, may you lead us to lead the church where you want us to go so that we can be faithful and that your people, including us, can be blessed because of our faithfulness. So lead us, God, from this day forward, and in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a safe journey today and stay warm